Hi there guys, it's Joey, and I've been mulling over whether or not to make this video because in part I stay away from drama as much as I feasibly can. However, there is something that has come up as part of the recent troubles on YouTube that I really felt needed to be addressed a little bit more than it already has, and I mentioned this on a comment to Jude's video, and I decided to go ahead and talk about this and make a video. For the purpose of this video, I have no makeup on. I'm completely nude on my face and I'm not very well, so there you go. But I've done this all on purpose, left all my makeup off and all the rest of it, because this video is about sexuality and that's about being naked. And the reason that I wanted to make this video and talk about this video is that I think there have been three issues, is issues the right, yeah, okay. There have been three issues that have come up as a result of the recent troubles on YouTube. One is the sort of repressive and slut-shaming attitude towards female sexuality. Another is a sort of homophobic tendencies towards people's sexual preferences, and tied to that last one, but I guess we can call it a slightly separate one, is the attacking people who are of transgender, which again ties into sexual choice and to do with the naked form, and to do with people's sexual rights. And I was mulling it and thinking, you know, I think I'm gonna have to address this subject. And the thing is, on my channel already, there are one or two videos which talk about repression of women in particular, and I think We Are People addresses a lot of the nitty-gritty of that sort of thing. So I'm going to keep this as if I was having a conversation with a younger or more vulnerable person, and I'm going to talk about the fact of key issues that come to do with sexual shaming, and that is those who do it on purpose to dominate, control and manipulate others. It can be seen at large in a societal way, but it's basically one of the master tools behind domestic violence and rape culture, as well as shaming those of a different sexual orientation, whatever that might be. And the more and more I thought about this, and the more and more I need to speak about this, because this is quite a frightening development, and I need to say this as an English person, I need to say this as a woman, I need to say this as a witch. And I've posted on my personal Facebook, and I have posted in a group on just to share this thought process. But I thought, you know, we need to make a video, we need to discuss this, because there were some really upsetting points which I think affect me as a woman, me as a witch, and so forth. And my personal feelings on the matters of sexuality is, as long as you're not harming anybody, you should fully be embracing your sexuality, and there is no reason to attach feelings of guilt or shame to anybody else's sexual path. In fact, talking about sexuality in modern times is a liberating thing for women to be doing. Not just women, of course, men too, but given that the context of this aggressive behaviour against a female sharing sexual knowledge or advice or whatnot came through a very female slant, as if that it was an unfeminine thing to do, and all other names have then been thrown around, whore being one, things of that nature, because a woman came forward and discussed matters of sexuality. Women don't need to be slut-shaming other women. We have a history across the world, and it's even going on in countries to this day, to varying degrees, where women's sexuality is repressed because it's seen as something dangerous, and if a woman's in control of her body and she's threatening or some nonsense. There are many theories on why, you know, this comes about. You'll have feminist theories, and then you have people attacking feminism, which never makes much sense to me. People, you know, calling people feminazis for believing in equal rights for men and women, and the right for women to be paid equal pay and have equality and rights within their own body, a right of choice. And you have the ongoing double standard in the West of, you know, a guy sleeps with X amount of women, he's a stud, a woman does the same and she's a slut. And that is probably, whilst that is unfair and, you know, bias and gender inequality and nasty, there are countries in the world where women are stoned to death. They are forced sexual mutilation on women to stop them enjoying their sexuality. There is forced covering up of women to make sure that no sexuality is apparent. And what a person chooses to do, dress, however they choose to dress, whether it be fully covered up or showing everything they've got, it's their personal business. We live in this hyper-sexualized age where the sexualization of women in the media is full throttle, and then on the other hand we are shaming women, everyday women, for having sexual openness. It really worried me, and it was something that hasn't been overly discussed, and I think that all three of the things that I've seen attacked, a person's right to be transgender, a person's right to be homosexual or straight or bisexual, or the, you know, the whatever. I know there are strands, different strands, and if I cover them all, we'll be here all day. But basically, a person's right to sexual choice, whatever that may be, and then a woman's right to speak of matters on a sexual matter, whatever that might be. Honesty, the right of a woman to discuss openly and freely sexual matters of a sexual nature without being slut-shamed, without having a huge sense of guilt. So the next thing I really want to cover is matters of abuse. Okay, so nobody deserves to be abused in any form. You know, sexual abuse is an abhorrent thing, and I am a survivor of sexual abuse, and it's something I talk about from time to time if I feel that it's necessary. It's not something I want to bring up at every given opportunity, because I am a survivor. I refuse to be a victim, and to constantly replay it over and over is to make you a victim rather than to sort of embrace the fact that you survived and they have no power over you. Now, in those circumstances whereby you go on and you use what you have been taught by an abuser, and then you go on and project that, is the vicious ongoing cycle of abuse. It's not being a survivor, it's becoming abusive in oneself. It is to basically, abusers and the people who prey on others in forms of domestic violence and sexual abuse, and this can be of any gender. This can be female on female, male on male, male on female, female on male. It's regardless of gender. they prey upon people and they instill in them senses of guilt and shame. Oh, if you tell anyone, everyone's going to blame you, and everyone's going to think badly of you. And the sad thing is, there are people out there who will react to survivors of abuse exactly like that. They reinforce that terrible, terrible thing that abusers are using to control their victims. And this can be children that they're abusing, this can be adults that they're abusing, but the methods are generally speaking the same. And then people will go out and reinforce, oh, that you're dirty because you're a survivor. That needs to be like got rid of right now, because people who are survivors are strong effing individuals. However, you survive, you get through, and then who you become is up to you. You have to, reach a point in your life where it's like, right, who do I become? Because being a victim is not your identity. And if you allow it to be your identity forever, you know, then basically you are still in the cycle of abuse. And if you then choose to become an abuser, and I have seen this a lot, I have seen abusers use it as an excuse. I have, you know, I've seen people who I don't think they meant to do it, but they become what they, you know. And to be honest, the only difference between them and the survivors that have gone on and that have championed a cause and have rebuilt themselves is how they chose to react in the aftermath. You know, you seek help. If you refuse help and you don't need help, then that's usually going to lead you to a bad place. Basically, as human beings and as survivors of abuse, we cannot and should not be perpetuating the idea that other people's sexuality should bring them shame just because somebody has abused us as individuals and tried to bring feelings of guilt and shame into our sexuality. It's absolutely 100%. You cannot keep perpetuating those cycles. It's a really damaging for us to basically slut shame women when women have come forward to talk about matters of a sexual nature. Now, whether or not and the thing is, we're talking about matters of a sexual nature in a forum where you are given choice to watch or not watch the video. It's the same as a book, a TV show, or whatever. You are given the choice to engage with the material or not. And given that it was an openly titled open discussion of a sexual matter, then if you thought that the issue at hand was going to upset you, then why would you watch it other than to try and bring feelings of guilt and shame to an individual who decided to embrace their sexuality and be open and discuss it? Furthermore, on that point, I am half English. I have lived in England my entire life. I've spent most of my life trying to champion causes for women survivors, and I have come under fire for calling myself a feminist and believing in equality of the sexes. I believe in a woman's right to choose and a woman's right to say no, and that applies to men, of course, as well. I believe in men's right to choose and men's right to say no with matters of a sexual nature. Rape culture thrives off the idea that sexuality is a bad thing. Now, we're supposed to be in a pagan-based community here, and whatever, it's not going to be the same for everybody, but for people who claim to follow the path whereby a god and a goddess are the pinnacle of spirituality, and basically the whole cycle of the year is based around their sexual behaviours, their sexual interactions with one another, that the miracle of birth comes from sexuality. And yeah, it doesn't add up, it doesn't line up. I would argue against it in any spiritual path because it's a form of repressive attitude, and I don't like spirituality being brought to the forefront as an argument against sexual expression and freedom. I don't like it. I don't like it being said that the English people would be, you know, disgusted by this sort of behaviour. My nana taught me more about sexuality because I wasn't being taught anything by my parents, and she didn't know anything was going on, but my nana bought me a couple of books to help me understand sexuality. My nana was a fairly prim and proper woman, but if you do anything on your research and history, the Victorians, the most outwardly strapped up, tight-knit people that, you know, of sexuality, didn't discuss it behind closed doors, ravenous appetites. The pornography in the Victorian times was huge. There were huge sexual clubs, and the fact that Jack the Ripper operated in Victorian times when there was so many prostitutes is no coincidence. Telling people they can't talk about sexuality isn't going to stop people being sexual in nature. That, oh goodness, I'm getting so wound up. Breathe. Okay, so English people aren't like this. In fact, there are some really negative stereotypes of people going abroad and being incredibly promiscuous as well as violent and damaging to their environment. That's another stereotype that we really want to be trying to get rid of. There is no one way, there is no an English way of addressing sexuality. It's not prim and proper in England to shut your mouth about sexuality and I don't know, the idea that we should all be going back in time to your stereotypical, I think this is how the Four Queens put it, she put going back in time to being like a 1950s housewife when they were all repressed and they were supposed to be giddly little two-shoes, going around my house with my vacuum cleaner and never wanting anything for myself, never having any sexual thoughts or sexual freedoms. No, we're living in the modern age right now. I constantly talk about the idea of the wild woman, and that comes from reading and embracing with the idea of the wild woman sisterhood. This is something that started on Facebook for me. I've ordered the book as well for Christmas, Yule, however you want to say it. And the wild woman sisterhood is about embracing the primal female energy within oneself, and that's for men and women. And the primal female energy, the sexuality, the sexual freedoms, it's about being who you are on a sexual level. It's the right to choose, the right to discuss, the right not to be abused and come out and people are like, yeah, you want to shut your mouth because we don't want to hear that. Now that's a reaction I've had from people that, you know, you're dirty, I don't want anything to do with you, you're sexually abused. Now, do I go ahead and go on and tell any other survivor of sexual abuse that, yeah, you don't want to be talking about that, that's dirty? Or go to people who are talking about the female body or matters of female sexuality? Absolutely not. They have the right to choose to discuss those matters, and witches and women and men should come together and say, you know what, it's your choice to watch something, read something, learn something or not. And slut-shaming other women, slut-shaming other women is possibly the most damaging thing a sisterhood can do. This, we're supposed to be supportive of our fellow sisters, and a woman slut-shaming another woman is possibly one of the most vile acts against sister kind that you can do, sisterhood kind that you can do, because it tends to go like this. Now, this is a generalisation, but it tends to be when a man slut-shames a woman, the women all come together and they're like, get out of my space. And it tends to be, not always, but it tends to be he's trying to like slut-shame her for either he's an abuser or it tends to be that he didn't get anywhere sexually. We are generalising there, but when another woman's doing it, other women are like, well, why is she doing that? Should I be doing that? Like the more impressionable ones, no, you shouldn't. You should be embracing who you are as a sexual person. And if you are straight, if you are gay, if you're bisexual, as long as you're not harming anybody, you know, you should embrace who you are as a sexual person, and we should not be repressing people their right to speak is a hard-earned thing. It's based on history of suffering, torture, abuse. There's a whole history behind being able to speak out. And even now women are repressed in this country, in the Americans countries, and you know, all over the world, to different varying degrees and in different ways. There are different elements of rape culture and shaming culture present, and it's just not on. In the same week that the UK banned I forgot what his name is, I don't care what his name is, he's basically called the rape guru, and he was in Japan making videos about the fact that Japanese women's culture means they're more submissive, so he could get away with acts of rape basically, and he was teaching other men to do this. In the same week the UK said, you're not welcome here, don't come here and teach seminars, then there's this. One step forward, 10 steps back. Basically, to me, I don't care about who you want to be and your sexual preferences has nothing to do with me. You lead a healthy, happy life with a man, with a woman, I don't care. As long as you are happy and content, and you know, and you're good to me, then I'll be good to you. That's how I see it. And a person's sexual preferences and things, none of your business, and none of my business. And if a person's transgender, then you know, that's their choice. That's their inner feeling. That's how they are as a human being. That's what's in their spirit, in their soul, who they want to be. And that's nothing to do with anybody else but them. And as for talking about matters of sexuality, if people want to make videos, why shouldn't they? If they want to discuss things openly, why shouldn't they? Like, just, it makes me really quite angry that the idea of slut shaming other women, and I'm sorry, but the English, So yeah, I'm gonna stop because I'm ranting. So that's gonna be it for this video. Whoever you are, whatever your sexuality, embrace it, and don't let anybody tell you that you should be ashamed of who you are as a sexual human being. Many blessings.